Alrighty, good morning, everybody. Today, let me introduce myself. My name is Steve from The Buried Life, and today we're going to talk about the top 10 essential translation apps for expats and retirees, and answering the question, do you really need to know the language to retire overseas? And that seems to be kind of an interesting type of question because it depends on which generation you come from. So we're going to talk about a few of these things right now and talk about old school. I'm going to be 58 here pretty damn soon. And it's amazing because I can see the differences between my generation or older generations versus newer and younger generations in regards to languages and speaking and all of that. Now, way back in the day, it used to be a highly prized thing to be able to know multiple languages. And when I went to school, it ended up I took German and I also took a little bit of Spanish. My family's mostly German. My real last name was Mach, M-A-C-H, and my dad's parents were German, and so that's probably where I get my height from, 6'2", and I'm currently 255 pounds. So with that, back then in those days, learning a language, and that was a highly prized thing. That was a thing that was like set you apart as being able to be multilingual, and it still is to some day, to some length of sliding scale of I don't know, whatever. But it ends up that that's kind of a good thing to have. You have these people on YouTube that are polyglots and learning all these languages and going around and speaking to people, which is ultimately awesome. But do you need that today? And I've run across people that were older that were like, oh, you have to learn the language. You have to be able to speak fluently to be able to retire overseas. And then on the other side of the spectrum is a lot of younger people who are like, yeah, I don't know the language. I've got an app. So somewhere in between, you will find where you fit within that range. And what works best for you. Now, there's a lot of different variables that come into play with this. The ability to learn a language, use a language, be immersed in the language. Some people are better at learning languages than others. Some people like myself who've had some medical issues cannot learn languages as I once used to. And, accidents happens and cars roll over on you and flatbeds run over you and all that kind of stuff. So, there are some exceptions to the rule, but somewhere within this range, you will have an ability to learn some words, some phrases to make life a little bit easier. And back in the day, it wasn't uncommon for people to carry around a phrase book or a dictionary of, say, in my case, a Korean to English dictionary and English to Korean dictionary. And so that was in my back pocket. And when my wife and I got together, we used the hell out of that dictionary. It's a thing. And I knew a guy who got married to a Korean. He didn't speak a lick of Korean his entire life. I mean, he could order beer in a bathroom and kind of the normal GI things when you go out to the clubs. But when he got married, he didn't learn any Korean. And he had been married for, at the time that I met him, 25 years. And yeah, his Korean was next to nothing, and except for a few words and stuff like that. And so he heavily relied on English. Excuse me. So, you have people like that who have lived in Korea and have done that. And then you have the other people who learn the language, speak it fluently. If you close your eyes, you would swear you're talking to a native Korean. And that's kind of interesting. But it seems nowadays people are looking to technology to get them what they need in regards to translation. So today we're going to talk about the top 10 essential translation apps, because I've gotten the question, do you absolutely need to know a foreign language to be able to retire overseas? And I would say no, because there are apps and technology. And the interesting thing is that, yeah, people will look upon you more favorably if you learn their country's language and so on and so forth. I get that. But even younger generations in foreign countries are relying and using translation apps more and more, to the point of where it's not, and they don't see it as something as older generations do. older generations were like, oh, you got to learn the language. Younger generations are like, hey, I can rap with you. We have this translation thing on my phone, so I can talk to anybody anywhere. There's videos of people that from foreign countries that travel to other foreign countries that don't speak a lick of any language of the countries that they're going to, and it's all on Papago. It's all a translation. They speak, they hear, they speak, and they do a conversation, and they are able to get through and travel the world and have a great time doing it without having to invest a ton of time to learn the language of that country, because most likely they're just going to go visit. Maybe they'll stay a month or so, maybe 3-4 months, and then they move on to another country, and it's kind of pick your battles type of thing. So anyway, I wanted to go over these top 10 translation apps. So the first one we're going to take a look at, best overall, is Google Translate. It's tried and true. I have used this. I have it on my phone. I use it here in Korea, and it does text, voice, and scan translation options. The app has over 130 languages, so obviously you're going to look for an app that has the language that you need. An amazing feature allows a person to take photos of signs and have the text translated instantly. This is kind of important because as you're going around, you can see something and boom, you can see it on the screen. It's immediately translated, and eventually it will go to glasses. And, without the big headgear thing, it's coming. It really needs to get there. But additionally, there's quite a few languages that can be used with no internet service at all, and you can download the language packs for this, which is very important, because if you don't have internet service in some countries that people go to, you will have spotty internet, and if that's a requirement for that translation app, you could be left high and dry. There's some really neat features with ITranslate, and it seems to work out really well. I have personally used it a lot, and I don't have any problems with it. There are some minor translation errors in it, but nothing that would get you arrested, or somebody would take you to the opposite end of the country when you're getting a taxi ride. It's minor translation issues. The next one we're going to take a look at is this one here, which is Apple Translate, and this is a free app as well. And it's pretty good. It supports communication at 18 widely used languages. You can look up individual words of a completed translation through dictionary function and check alternative meanings. I've used this a little bit. It works kind of good. Beyond basic translation, offers a conversation mode for real-time dialogues and a handy offline mode for all languages. Again, it works out pretty good. And basically what we're coming down to, when you're looking at an app, you have the choice of free apps and going cheap, kind of like I do, or you're going to shell out some money, whether it's a one-time fee or it's a monthly fee, which I absolutely hate subscriptions. I'm old school that way. So that one, Apple Translate, is pretty interesting. Another one is Deep Translate. This is something I'm going to take a look at, free for limited translations. In other words, a premium option is that $8.74 a month, billed annually. And again, I'm not a big fan of subscription services unless it's really small. And this, for DeepL Translate and other apps that have a monthly fee, really what it comes down to is how often are you going to use it, and is the price justified for what you're getting? You see what I'm saying? And that kind of bothers me, because a lot of times people will get an app and they use it sporadically. I use my free app sporadically. I don't see getting billed per month and doing a subscription service as something that I would want to pay, because of I don't use that as much as they think you should. It uses advanced technology. Another translator has become big over the years. It's available in many languages, not just 29 languages, which you see. It has more advanced AI technology. That seems to be the buzzword these days, is AI technology is one of the most accurate options you can get. It boasts of heightened data security for users. It's useful, but also for those tricky official documents or files you might come across. And again, it really comes down, there's some great free apps, and we're talking about everyday life. So if I go to the grocery store and I'm reading labels and I can't figure it out, or I use iTranslate or whatever, Google Translate, I'm taking pictures of packages to see what it is, worst case scenario. Or if I'm trying to find something and it's not here, I can use the translation app to speak to a clerk and say, hey, do you have this item, blah, blah, blah. That's normally what you're going to look at. Maybe ask for directions, maybe ask for, when does the next bus get here, where can I buy tickets for this or that, just Barney basic conversation things. And so really paying a monthly amount, in my opinion, isn't really justified unless that's your thing. I don't know. So we're going to skip over this one and go over to Microsoft Translator, free for private use, which is good. It provides simultaneous translations across multiple languages, captions for both online and in-person conversations. Translator is one of the most versatile features that covers personal, business, and educational use. And you can download languages for offline use and select alternate translations between various levels of formality. Now, this is kind of important when you get into Asian cultures, because there is a hierarchy when speaking to people. And in Korean, if somebody's younger than you, there's different levels of formality. When speaking with somebody who's younger than you, or your same age, or your friend, and there's a difference when somebody's older than you, it's more honorific and everything. So yeah, that's kind of interesting. One of its distinguishing features is translating live conversations across multiple devices and languages for up to 100 people. Now, this is really interesting. I haven't looked at this yet. I just found this the other day, so I'm going to be downloading this and taking a look at it. It can also generate live captions for presentations, calls, and conversations. Now, that's going to be really interesting, because with that, I had a gentleman talk to me about this, saying that he has, and I'm pretty sure it's this one here, where on his phone, when he does a phone conversation, he hears it in the foreign language, and the app ends up translating it into English, and then vice versa. He speaks in English and it translates it into the foreign language, if this is indeed the one that he's talking about. So yeah, I'm definitely going to take a look at number 4, and that's kind of interesting. And again, it's free for private use, so that's a big bonus. We're going to continue on. This next one here, best for extra features, iTranslate. I have this on my phone as well. Free 7-day trial period. I've tried it. Again, I'm not a big fan of the subscription service, $50 per year. I just don't see enough return on investment with stuff like this. Again, it's got a phrase book, dictionary, thesaurus, verb conjugator. I hated conjugating verbs when I was learning German and Spanish and all that stuff. Like many other apps, you can translate dictation, which is a definite plus. No need to tap the screen. You can speak and get your answer. Among the free features is possibility to switch between dialects. That could be important, but it depends on the country that you're in. So if you're in a country that has a ton of dialects, like maybe China, this might be something that you would want to get. But again, it depends on where you're at in the dialects, and if you can operate using the free apps, why would you pay money for a paid app? If you could get it for free. Yeah, I'm going to harp on that for a little bit. So anyway, offline mode is very important, but yeah, I'm not a big fan of paying extra money. Unfortunately, the whole world has gone into the subscription service payment thing, and I really just want to pay for the app and own the app, and that's it. Or have it for free. Best live communication is SayHi. Is simply designed to app simultaneously translates in-person conversation, which is good for traveling. 100 languages, one of the best apps for in-person conversation. It provides simultaneous direct translation as you're speaking. So kind of like you'll see this with some other apps like Google Translate, iTranslate. As you speak and do that conversation translation bit, you speak and it'll write it out, from English, type it out in English, and then it'll translate it into the foreign language in a separate part of your phone, so that way you can show the person. So as they hear the foreign language, your question from English to a foreign language, they can also read it as well. So there are other apps that do this. But again, this is free, which is really good. The app is automatically recognize language and switch between the two. It always requires an internet connection to do this. So again, in my opinion, would this be one that I would want to get? Probably not, because it requires an internet. And I can't tell you, there's been a number of times where you have something that requires the internet. I can guarantee you, you're going to run into more circumstances where it can't access for some strange reason, or there's a glitch, and it's right at the time that you need it. It's not like you're sitting back and you're like, oh, I'm just kind of have a casual conversation and it jerks up. Usually it's like when I'm looking to go somewhere, I need to get train tickets. I need to ask about where do I go, where's the nearest taxi stand or whatever. And if the app freezes because it doesn't have a constant internet connection, or there's a poor or spotty connection, that's something I don't want. So yeah, I got to give the SayHi thumbs down. The next one, number 7, Best Messaging Translator. This one I haven't used, but again, there's a free 3-day trial. But again, $10 a month, seriously? We're just going to skip that. Okay, go on to number 8, Best for FaceTime Calls. Translate Now, a free version and a pro version for $99 a month. Excuse me, it's an app that has most features you need, plus an option to translate even your FaceTime calls. This would be really interesting. I'm going to take a look at this one. I haven't looked at this one. It has over 110 languages, voice and text translation. You can speak or write and get instant translation, but a lot of free apps do this as well. So it's not really groundbreaking here. Personally, use this app with pronunciation skills. It translates from one language to another and reads back to translation. And other apps do this as well. So, once you start looking into these apps and trying out a number of apps, and there's a number of apps that I've tried that didn't even make this list. So, yeah, you're limited. And again, it's all a feeder into getting you to pay $10 a month. And so, it is what it is. The best designed, free, Speak and Translate. This one I haven't used yet. It's free, but a premium version without ads is $4.99 per month or $70 per year. If you don't mind ads, one of the best design translation apps on the list. Best designed, that's subjective. Speak and Translate offers comfortable and sleek translating experience, 100 languages, blah, blah, blah. I didn't know I could do that with my little mouse pad. It stands out, user-friendly, an option to change colors, settings. Do I really care about colors and settings? It also includes a voice recognition, iCloud integration, and possibility to change the playback speed and gender of the voice. I don't really care about that. Whether you're traveling or learning a new language, bridging language barriers in business, Speak and Translate is the app to have. I don't know. You could try that out and see, but you will definitely find that some apps are hyping up some stuff, or it might just come down to the usability of the app and the ease of use of the translation apps. You might like one or the other, even though they do the exact same thing, but it's just kind of in a little different format that maybe it's more user-friendly versus another one. The last one we're going to take a look at here is Best Phrases Travel Phrase Book. The price is free, or for the full version. Again, you can try it for free, but then again, you have the internet. You could get up, phrases, top 100 common phrases for free in a PDF or whatever. You can find that online. So, do you really need this? Useful phrases, 19 popular language features, so it's highly probable that the one you're learning is available. No internet connection is necessary. Again, I think that's kind of a key thing. Fundamental words and phrases to access in a hurry. And again, this all goes back with the audio playback. There's a lot of other translation apps that do this exact same thing. Free. There is no, you have to pay for any type of money for a full version, but the full version is $4.99. It's not a recurring monthly fee or yearly fee or whatever. So that's something to take a look at there. So anyway, that's kind of the question we're taking a look at today. It's top 10 translation apps for expats and retirees. And do you really need to know a foreign language to retire overseas? Now, obviously, you're going to get to a place of where yes, you'll live in a foreign country, you'll pick up words and phrases, even if you don't want to learn the words and phrases, they will rub off on you. And the more you're immersed in that environment, the more you'll just kind of get through osmosis. You'll hear people speaking, you pick out words and can kind of get phrases and stuff like that together. But again, and it depends on how much time you want to put into that endeavor. But here's the thing with apps and translation apps is that now it gives you time that you would have to invest into learning a language that you no longer have to do, so you don't have to be burdened by that if you feel that it's a burden. Some people, they love learning foreign languages. It's easy for them. They did it for their job, or maybe they went to defense language school in the military or whatever, and they got paid to learn the language and do it as part of their job. Other people just take the languages like a duck on a lake. They swim around, they love it, they can do it, it's no problem. Before my injuries, I did pretty decent at languages, but it's just a problem now. So it is what it is. And again, it comes down to the point of where, do you really need to know a foreign language to live overseas? No. Again, I've run into people, and people have messaged me and said, hey, I want to ask you about foreign languages and stuff, or people that have retired in other countries like Thailand and Philippines, Malaysia, Bali, and things like that are like, yeah, I don't, and having conversations with them on different topics, and then it eventually it's like, well, how do you deal with translation and language and all this stuff? And it's like, well, I know some words and phrases, but use my app and I'm good to go. And then there's also the fact that the majority of people who are expats and retirees will be in places where there's a higher concentration of foreigners. So the locals have a higher percentage of knowing the language that they speak, so they know more English. And it also depends on the country that you're going to. So if you go to the Philippines, there's a ton of English is being spoken in the Philippines along with their native language and dialects. Same thing here in Korea. When you're close to a U.S. military base, a lot of the establishments, the stores, and so on and so forth, they cater towards foreigners and military personnel and their families. So there isn't this huge divide like there was when I first got to Korea in 1988, before the Olympics. Yeah, that's kind of dating myself. That was a long time ago. And where being in the military and traveling and doing all that type of stuff here in Korea back then was crazy, because there wasn't a lot, English wasn't as saturated into the Korean education system as it is now. Now, back in 1988, when I was teaching conversational English at Kangwon University that was up near Chuncheon. So in other words, I would go past the bars and the GI bars and stuff like that. I went into the economy and I go down the, kind of the walkways in the stores. And since Chuncheon was a university town, there's a lot of university students. So when they see somebody who is an American, what they would end up doing is say, oh, excuse me, and I would like to talk to you. And basically they wanted real world conversations. And so they would take you out for coffee and, can I buy you lunch, and we speak English, and so work on my English. And so, sure, yeah, I'll do that, And eventually that got to a point of where I was teaching conversational English where I didn't need to know Korean. Matter of fact, I was told, do not speak Korean, speak only English. So it was cool. I was getting paid, on the weekends that I wasn't working, and it was kind of cool. I enjoyed it. And then the other cool thing about that is after class, I was always going to a coffee shop. Students were always taking me to coffee shops, they were taking me to restaurants, they were taking me to karaoke bars and all that stuff, and constantly practicing English. So speaking Korean wasn't really the focus, because English was the focus. And back then it was people were ramping up and more concentration on English and so on and so forth. But it was a really fun time. Unfortunately, that gig ended because then there was a crackdown from the Korean government for unauthorized or uncertified ESOL teachers and so on and so forth. So the university ended up saying, hey, yeah, we can't pay you, you need to go. And then I was like, well, wait a second. can I still teach and you just don't pay me? And that kind of blew their mind because they're like, why would you want to teach and not get paid? It doesn't make sense. And so what I ended up doing was explaining and saying, hey, well, here's the deal. I get to teach conversational English. I get to meet people, and that's kind of cool, and it's different from my job. And so it's kind of removes me from that military GI bar mindset thing. And I get to, have more regular, normal friends and acquaintances, and I really enjoy that. And so they take me out for coffee, we go out, we go traveling and this and that, and it's all in English, and so I just really enjoy it. So the school is like, oh, okay, yeah, sure. It blew their mind because they didn't understand, well, if you are, if you're teaching, you should get paid, and they couldn't understand. It took a little bit. So they allowed me to stay and continue teaching conversational English. And basically, it's just kind of like a thing in around, and we just go around and talk about different subjects and practice, and just get used to being in front of a foreigner and speaking a foreign language and trying to communicate an idea, a thought, a thing from one person to another, and getting feedback and the importance of that communication process. So, it was kind of cool. But eventually that got shut down as well, and I only spent 2 years up there in Chuncheon, and then I transferred down to Camp Humphreys down here in Anjali. So, for a different job. So I kind of lost out on that. But anyway, nowadays we have apps, and I have run into Koreans who use apps. Like, for example, we were at a hospital, my wife was getting some work done, and I had to interact with the nurse or the nurses, and I had to ask questions. And so it's like, I need this, can you get me an extra this or that or whatever. And I knew some basic words that I could say, I want this, can I please have one of these, like a blanket or whatever it was, or cups or something or whatever. But past that, and it's like, I want some ice, can I get some ice for my wife? And so now there's a problem because for ice chips, I know you can't eat or drink after surgery, but can you have ice chips just to wet your lips and kind of, water your mouth a little bit to get that dry mouth and kind of get back into normalcy instead of that whole thing. So that's where the app came in, and then the nurse pulls out her phone and she's like, da, 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 boom. And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah. And then I had my phone because we both pulled them out at the same time, so we laughed. And there's ice for pain and for pain management and, ice packs and things like that versus ice for consumption. So the nurse pulls out her phone and does her app thing. I pulled out mine. Another instance of a Korean using an app to translate, because he obviously didn't know much English at all other than these are mine, I did this. But when you start getting in and working into the details, I went to a tattoo shop and talking about and looking at some of the work that this guy had done and had some ideas. And his English was lacking, like my Korean is lacking. We knew what we wanted to talk about. And boom, he pulls out his phone and he's like on it. And the same thing, he was able to speak. It translates into English, into written form, and it, audio came out, and it's like, oh, okay. And then I would speak. So we had these conversational apps, and, we had an interesting time. And then we even talked about how he got started in tattooing and how long he's been doing it, and showed me his artwork and this one. And translation apps have come a long way from where they first came out to where they're clunky. They didn't, I would like to have a cup of coffee. And then on the other end, it's like, the ball is red. And it's like, wait a second, something is obviously wrong here. There was a lot of mistranslations. But with technology, and I hate to say it, I don't want to say AI, but I'll just say advanced technology and better programming, voice recognition and things like that, we're able to overcome those common errors that we used to have with translation apps in the beginning. And now those things are a thing of the past. So really, you could pay bills, you could shop, you could, and it's interesting because I want to take a look at the definitely the phone apps, to where during a phone conversation that I speak English, but it automatically gets translated into Korean, and then vice versa through this app. So that's my next thing to take a look at, because really now I'm coming to a place of where I can get my normal life through minimal translation, but I still use the translator for things. But now I seem to be getting phone calls because of the hobby I'm in. So an example that came in, I'm going to be doing some testing of some 3D resin printing, and a company owner in China contacted me and offered me to check out if I wanted to do some testing. I said, yeah, I'd love to. Matter of fact, I'm already using your products and I love it. And so he was kind of surprised, really. And so I showed him pictures and the whole 9 yards through an email. But it ends up, he says, well, I'm going to get my agent who's in Korea to send you some resin. Well, then the agent in Korea contacts me to verify my address and my phone number. And of course, he calls. And usually anybody that calls me, I just immediately go to voicemail, because I'd say about 99% of the stuff, maybe 95% of the stuff is just advertising, it's surveys, it's junk mail, it's spam, it's the same thing they do in the United States, it happens here. Oh, you need to invest in the stock market, boom. That's why I just send everything to voicemail unless it pops up from somebody on my contact list. Otherwise, it'll go straight to voicemail, and then I'll check it someday. But dealing more with what I'm doing with testing and 3D printing and so on and so forth, I'm dealing with people. I need to have that translation capability while I'm on a phone call with somebody. So that is the next thing that I'm going to be taking a look at. And since my wife's Korean and she's got a phone and I got a phone, we can test that out and see how that actually works. So it's going to be kind of exciting. But yeah, what I would ultimately like to see is a pair of glasses with a heads-up display, so that kind of like when you have your phone and there is for example, Google Translate, we got the Google Translate here, and you can have a camera option. And so whatever you point the camera at, it will translate. So let's see if we can do this here. And I'll show you. So it will translate. Can you see it? There it is. So it'll translate to things like this, but as I point the camera, it will automatically translate signs and things like that, labels of products in stores and, product ingredients and so on and so forth, real time. So I think what would be really cool is that if you had a heads-up display in at least one of the lenses, and there are some people that are working on this already, but have it for prescription glasses, because I'm old and that's just the way it is, and you'll get old too. But to be able to have at least one lens with a heads-up display, so that as you look and you see store signs and so on, that it's automatically translated into English like you do with iTranslate. Boom, that's a thing. That would be the bomb, because then everything is open to you, And then, you talk about the next step of going from this to your glasses that maybe has a speaker or, earphones and stuff like that, to where somebody's speaking and it's automatically translated, kind of like that phone app type of thing. Excuse me. Then really you're getting to a place of where you don't really need to know a language. Sure, it's great to know a language, and when you speak or attempt to speak in the language of the country that you're in, people generally are like, oh, he's taking time to learn the language. So, and that's always a good thing, and you should learn. But is it required? Can you retire overseas without learning a language? And I would have to say yes, because the number of people that I have been in contact with who have done exactly the same thing. I've talked to some people who retired to Thailand that know zero Thai whatsoever. It's just, there was a guy I was talking to, he contacted me and because he liked my videos, and he's like, yeah, I packed a suitcase, I dropped it, just sold everything, went to Thailand, and boom, I decided to retire. He didn't go on vacation. He didn't go there to say, hey, I'm going to try to check out the places, and kind of narrowed it down through a series of vacations and recon trips. He just went and retired with a backpack, basically. And I'm like, damn, that's ballsy. But he did everything through translation apps. And he goes, yeah, it slows things down. But again, he kind of liked that in the fact that he doesn't think there's enough return on investment for learning the language because whatever reason, there's multiple reasons, but it's not required anymore. Not like it used to be. If you wanted to retire to an overseas country, you had to study the language, years and years of training and practice and this and that just to be able to go get a meal and coffee, and basic conversations. Now, they have devices that you could put, one earpiece in your ear and your significant other put an earpiece in their ear, and boom, you can talk. Handheld translation devices, you've seen them advertised on Facebook and seen them being reviewed on YouTube and so on and so forth. So it's no longer a requirement now. And eventually we had to a place where, yeah, you'll just throw on some glasses and all that's going to be done for you. And so that leaves you time to do other stuff. So there's two ways of thinking. Yes, you should learn the language. You should be hardcore. You should immerse yourself. You should speak fluently. So when you close your eyes, you sound like a native. And then there's the other end of the spectrum of I don't need to spend all that time because I want to free up my time for doing something else. I'm not good at learning languages for whatever reason. So there's solutions to both. It just depends on what end of the spectrum that you're going to be. And again, after being here in Korea for almost 2 years now, is that, yeah, my Korean has gotten better. I've dusted things off. Again, I got my own medical issues that I have to deal with when it comes to learning languages and new information in a foreign language. I can learn information in English, which is weird, 3D printing and resin and all that kind of stuff. But when it comes down to languages, I'm kind of limited in some way, shape, or form, and not like I used to be when I knew German and when I did a little bit of Spanish. So I'm kind of the odd duck. But with that, the good thing is that, yeah, you can retire overseas and not know the language. Will there be additional hurdles that you have to overcome? Absolutely. Some people have asked me, well, are you going to become a Korean citizen? And no, I'm not. You have to take a naturalization test, kind of like you do when you become a citizen of the United States. You have to know history, you have to do this, you have to speak the language, you have to have good proficiency and so on and so forth, and take a test and all that. The same applies here in Korea. But with the Korean language, you really got to know what you're talking about. And you really got to know the language and the history. And I know a lot of the history of Korea. But for me, becoming a Korean citizen, it's just not appealing because I'm good where I'm at. I have a visa. I can renew it. There's no draw for me to become a Korean citizen. For other people that are Americans who have come to Korea and become, Korean citizens, that's absolutely fine. If that's what they want to do, then good on them. I'm good with me, and they're good with them. So we can live in harmony. It's not do this, you have to do this or not. Or I look down on people who become Korean citizens because they left the citizenship of their home country. I don't. That's their own decision. If they're happy with the decision that they made, then I'm happy for them. So I don't look down on people who learn the language or don't learn the language, become a citizen of the host country that they're in or not, or just live in a visa and be forever a U.S. citizen. I'm happy with that, so I'm happy. Other people should be happy because I found my happiness, and that's really what it comes down to. So, yeah, so that's it. The top 10 essential translation apps, things to look into, and maybe that'll give you whether you're going to be a retiree and retire overseas or just be an expat or maybe even just a vacation, these translation apps can help you in that endeavor however long you're going to be in an overseas country. So anyway, if you, in your experience, tell me what you think. And will we ever get to the heads-up display with the glasses like I want? And I think, what was it, the Apple, that huge headset with the VR thing, and yeah, that's just, I knew that was going to bomb because it's just so huge. And it's like, yeah, it's kind of like an iron lung. We, it's the iron lung of VR. It's just not a thing. And I think if we can get to the point of where we get the glasses and the auto translate, where it auto translates words and things like that, that would be the bomb. You can't beat that. And that would be beneficial to a lot of people. So anyway, put what you think in the comment section down below. I'd like to hear what you think about this in regards to translation and languages, and do you need it or don't, and have you ever faced a time where you needed a translation app? Excuse me, times where you have a translation app and it worked well or it didn't work well, and I'd like to hear your experiences. So with that being said, be sure to like and subscribe to The Varied Life on YouTube, which I would appreciate, so that the algorithm god would bless me and I would have more subscribers and grow the channel. Please. Yeah. And if you don't like all this retired stuff, I also do videos on 3D resin printing. Eventually I'll get into FDM printing and painting miniatures and doing all kinds of, I don't have any here. Well, I just got the one guy, the little alien dude that I made and painted. Yeah, I'm getting into that, and that's another hobby that I'm really enjoying, and getting into the artistic side of my life, which I never had before. Well, maybe, but there's that stuff, and there's some fitness stuff, and then there's just some commentary on things that my 2 cents that I think about, which, people disagree or agree. I don't really care. But yeah, a plethora, a variety of things on my channel, and you can check those out there. All right, so that's going to be it for today. We'll see you on the next video. Peace. Good stuff.